content better. And so it's not...
Well, that tells you that only wealthy people watch the Olympics. To have 4 screens open.
There should be a quick comment,
but I'm... It's a good demographic to go for, though.
Exactly.
Anyway, there's not just a second screen. There's several kinds of second screen, if you want to say that, and there's the third screen and the fourth screen.
Yeah, and maybe I kind of didn't complete the thought, but there's actually some really interesting cooperations going on between social platforms and media companies. And I think those things, if they can figure out what the economics of those deals are, I mean, clearly, like, you can't turn on a TV show these days without a hashtag or, go like this program so that we can keep you engaged, remind you to come back and watch next time and participate. It's just what are those deals going to look like? So it's either going to be, we'll compete for ad dollars, or we'll figure out, hey, we're driving engagement. Is there a way for, if there is a filter, and to make a more interesting, engaging experience, how that revenue gets split. But that's going to be, I think, a fascinating thing to watch evolve, because this is just at massive scale at this point.
So I have one more question, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the crowd here. But it's kind of going back. Let's go back a little bit and say, so what's the real value proposition in your mind around establishing second screen experience based businesses? Is it an advertising-based piece? Do we see subscription possibilities out there? What is it for you guys?
The big money opportunity, as we see it, is actually not digital advertising or mobile advertising, but we are a media company. We're in the business of aggregating eyeballs and selling advertising. But we want to create an extra ROI by being the link between the $75 billion that's spent on TV advertising in the US every year, and being able to show that somebody watches a Best Buy, checks into a show, watches a Best Buy commercial on TV, watches a Best Buy ad in Vigil, and then redeems for a Best Buy gift card. That person's going to spend money at Best Buy. Samsung better talk to them, and the best person to connect that consumer with that brand, Samsung, is Vigil, because I know all 3 happened, right? We're going to get your points into a mobile wallet so that you can spend it at Best Buy, or you can spend your points at any retailer that you want. And being able to have that connection of ROI from TV advertising right to retail is why we're doing this.
We're launching as a B2B business, and for reasons I already said, we want to have media partners, league partners, sponsorship partners, sponsor partners who will help us grow and aggregate users. We'd like to think that we could be a B2C business after that. We'll have to see. We think about what Zynga has done with their poker game, 34 million users a month. The average revenue per user numbers change, but let's just say they're grossing about $20 million a month for people buying virtual chips that they can't cash in, but they're playing poker. So that's a B2C model. It's pretty appealing if people want to do what our game does, letting them predict about sports, create odds, interact with each other. You can do direct challenges through the game. You can play in leagues and so on. So we're discovering a little bit what the right business model will be.
So I wholeheartedly agree with and I mentioned it before, the notion that starting to translate some of those dollars on the TV screen to this tactile, interactive experience that you have on the second screen. No doubt, I think that's the predominant model. That said, and specific to this audience, I think these applications are really interesting way to get your products discovered. So, in looking at Vigil as a platform where it's in context, somebody's watching the game, so to get in-gamer or fan candy, introduced and getting referral traffic from these things as second screen experiences proliferate. The second screen provider, I think, can participate in that with a referral or affiliate fee. But there's just this really nice way for sports fans to get introduced to new experiences that's in the right context as they're watching games.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of look at the kind of the emerging technology world as a place where you can really play around with kind of hybrid business models where you can take a B2B model to give you some runway to help you grow, some users, to be able to grow some test cases. And then if you can shift into that B2C model, I mean, the reality is, if anyone's out there trying to find funding in this space, the second you can get a user to actually pay you $1, that's when you're actually going to start seeing some real traction with some of those funders. So the way that we've looked at it is we want to solve the perceived broadcaster and brand issue around fragmentation, be able to grow a bit of user base, and then for us in the fall we'll launch our premium set where currently everyone can play en masse a social game against the world. But then if you want to create those customizable private leagues where if you and your buddies want to have your Thursday night beer league, well, now you can start creating some of those premium customizations that we all know users will pay for. And then if you can create a new category of content. I mean, at the end of the day, we all know there's lots of subscription revenue that's being generated around content. And what excites us is being able to take the fantasy content and be able to really kind of tailor it down to the individual game and then even to the individual half. So if we have people engaging in in-gamer, for example, for the Super Bowl, and they want to see who, commentator X or expert Y thinks would be a great play for the third quarter or for the fourth quarter, maybe they would be willing to pay a subscription premium to be able to get into that content. But I mean, I think that from a startup perspective, anyone that thinks that they know their business model and this is the de facto answer, well, they're stupid, they're wrong, because you have to be nimble, you have to change. You don't know how the market's gonna kind of respond to your product, and you need to be able to adapt fairly quickly, whether it's going straight white label, whether it's licensing it, whether it's going direct to consumer. I mean, I think that really depends on your product, but I think that because of technology, you can look at it in a hybrid way, which I think is pretty exciting for a lot of the startup world. There's
an old bit of financial wisdom, which is the best way to get rich is to create an accessory to a necessity. We try to keep that in mind, and we might say that sports is not a necessity, it's an obsession. So there are accessories to necessities, there are accessories to obsessions, and if you can tap into that, whether you're making, so Apple comes out with the iPhone. A lot of people made a lot of money creating accessories for iPhones, and I think that's something we think about, is how do we become an accessory to a necessity.
So we have a couple more minutes left. I assume there are many people out there considering building their own apps or second screen experiences. So now's a good time to ask these guys, and maybe you can save yourself some pain.
Hold your hand away from the microphone when we ask questions.
Here's one.
Thanks. So in television, you've got a fairly well-established set of demographics, who watches what, advertisers respond to those, and they buy their advertising accordingly. On the second screen, you sort of have every demographic, and I'm curious as to whether you guys think, A, there's a specific demographic that makes sense targeting with the second screen versus the big screen that people are used to, and B, if you think that for people who are on the first screen, if their focus is going to be to cater to their key demographics on the second, or to try and move into others.
Maybe you want to answer some of this question. Is it?
Well, I actually kind of see it the other way, right? I mean, we don't really have a whole lot of control over, or we have a general understanding, but we don't really have any targeting capability of the broadcast ads. We definitely have that, and increasingly so on the second screen experiences. So I think the current kind of thought is, how do we pair those two ads? Because the Ford for the pregame show on Fox wants to extend that buy digitally and surround themselves with everything, with the entire Fox experience. So those two are kind of joined here, but I can see these guys using more targeting capabilities to help, and they probably will have a much better understanding of the users of their own individual apps, and maybe serve 5 different ads during the same session to the various groups of people that are using your app?
Well, I mean, that's what's really interesting about the fantasy dynamic, because as we saw the demographics earlier, the demographics are increasingly white, male, very male. And so when you're talking about second screen, I think second screen really started social. I mean, people were on second screens because they were on Twitter and Facebook. The social demographic